Hey everyone, and welcome back to EyeOpener Society. I want to thank everybody for joining us here again. This is a big episode. This is something that I kind of thought of, and Hannah and I we always have multiple ideas, and we put pen to paper a lot of times, and we make these things happen just for you, the listeners. And I just want to give a big shout out to all of the listeners because we've been getting a really big jump on YouTube. It's actually really like what we've gotten in 1 year on our regular podcast, we achieved in less than a month on YouTube. It's absolutely
Whoop.
amazing. Yeah. So, everybody that's tuning in and listening to Hannah and I, we really appreciate it. It means so much to us. So, thank you very much for that. And as long as we're talking about podcasts, I just wanted to give a quick shout out because again, we are on Podbean, eyeopenersociety.podbean.com. And I was on one of their Facebook comments, I think, and there was another podcast that I just turned on because it seemed pretty interesting to me. It's called It's Not for the Normies. And I don't know if you heard this. It's really a great show. The
I'll have
guy's
to check it out.
autistic. Yeah, he's autistic. He has a 10-year-old autistic son that came on and did a podcast episode with him. I'm telling you, this kid blew us away.
Yeah.
And they talk about all the interesting things. This is just a synopsis. It says, follow along and listen in to the weird and wonderful discussions and conversations with different interesting people that are definitely not for the normies. So he talks a lot about conspiracy theories and mental health and just random things. But when his son, a 10-year-old kid, went in there talking about flat earth conspiracies and all this,
I love
and
that.
this kid knows dates and times, and it was absolutely amazing. So if you're on Podbean or if you're on other platforms, look for It's Not for the Normies. So coming back to us, we are your hosts. Now you have Hannah, you have me, Gary. You also have our other third host, Brittany, joining us too as well. And also in the studio with us is our favorite Ann Lund. You know Ann Lund for our show Haunted and Waiting. Ann Lund actually runs the blog Haunted and Waiting. And if you look up Ann Lund on Facebook as well, follow along with her. She's just fantastic. She's an inspiring author. Can't wait for that book to come out. But she grew up in a haunted house, and I had the pleasure of being in there. And we spoke about that on our last podcast episode. And it's always great to have Ann on our show. Ann, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you. And thank you for having me on again.
Yes, absolutely. It's always exciting, and I think you're going to fit in perfectly with this. So we wanted to get back to kind of like, I'm not going to get into paranormal ghost haunting, but I wanted to talk about ghosts and the concept with this. We turn on the TV and a lot of people love these ghost hunter shows or some of these ghost shows, but there's always a fear factor, and Hollywood loves doing this. They destroy the religions such as paganism and Wiccan and witchcraft, and they make it out for something it's not. I think these shows are designed to make you fear ghosts. Now, in the metaphysical community, there's a lot of people with some, gifts where they're able to contact the unliving. They're able to communicate with spirit. And that not necessarily is any kind of a bad thing. And they use this to help people, to help guide people. But if you're like you and I, and we don't have that gift, or maybe we just don't know how to use it, we may be startled because we might run into some sort of paranormal activity, or we might hear something from beyond. You never know. And I think we all have some sort of story, that we can share. But is this something to be feared? And that's the first thing I wanted to go around the table with. And I wanted to start real quick with Anne, since you did grow up in that haunted home. I mean, was it terrifying? And did you get used to it? Or is it something that's always terrifying to you?
So I think initially I was young. I was around nine, between 9 and 11 when the hauntings were pretty vivid. Yeah, I would say it was scary. But I think as I've gotten older, now I'm in my 50s, I don't find hauntings scary at all. And I think a lot of that has to do with when you've had experience. So I think the first couple of experiences you may have, yes, I can understand that they would be terrifying because it's something you don't understand. But I wouldn't tell anybody to be afraid of a haunting. I don't think there's really anything that they can do to you. I think it's, if anything, they're trying, if it's an intelligent spirit, it's trying to communicate with you in some way. So
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And, and like Hannah, you like, would you be like completely fearful if you had like some sort of an encounter?
I don't think so.
Really?
I mean, I just think it would depend on what type of ghost is coming to me. Because like in my head, like there's different types of ghosts, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I guess it would all just depend, on what type of experience it was. Like if it was just like angry, I feel like I would probably be a little bit freaked out. But if it was just like someone who was like suffering or, someone like that I know, then I think it would be emotional.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to that when you just mentioned emotional. That's gonna come in a little bit
Yeah.
later, but yeah,
I
you
just think
definitely
it
hit it in there. Yeah,
depends for me.
absolutely. Now, Brittany, I spoken to you early, even before the show, and you said you would be completely frightened by the experience.
Absolutely, 100%. I would probably be in tears, or it would just, I don't want to say ruin my day, but it would probably take me a while to recover if I had something. Like anytime I see that on TV or I hear about it, it's like a topic that I avoid.
Right. And is there a reason behind that though, Brittany? Like, is it just because you never really experienced it, or you just feel like that's something that would frighten you? Where does it come from?
I don't know if it's so much like an experience that I had, because there were times when my mom said I was little. My grandfather, I would say that he came and talked to me like while I was in my crib or like sleeping or whatever, but I've never had anything. I guess it's just always been a fear, like with how Hollywood makes it, that and adds that fear factor in. It's just something that I can't, anything that's scary, I completely withdraw from. I'm like, I want nothing to do with it. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, I feel
I,
that. I don't do
Mhm.
yeah,
scary movies either. I'm like, nope, mm-mm.
no,
I will not sleep. I will throw up.
Mhm.
I don't like it. So I feel you on that. But
yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, like I just like, I guess, open my mind and I'm like, you know what? It would just honestly depend. Like if it was something like scary, like how Hollywood makes it out to be, I'd be like shitting my pants. But like if it was something like I said, emotional, we'll touch base later on it. But I think I'd be like more open and like calm. Initial, I'd be like, like freak out. But like then I'd be like, all right, this is what this is. Okay.
And I think too, when I had a couple experiences myself, but I did have an experience and it was absolutely the most terrifying thing in my life. And I think this goes back to Hannah, what you had said too. I guess it depends on what type of experience it is. Whatever it was that I seen that day in that car
Oh,
along the Connecticut border of New York, it was absolutely terrifying. And again, I just think it was the type of spirit or whatever it was that we had seen that just was out of place. And it probably had nothing to do with me or my friend. It was just something that was there and it absolutely terrorized us.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think it does boil down to the type of haunting, the type of spirit, what they're doing. Because here's the thing, and I'll refer this to you there, Anne. Sometimes I think ghosts, and especially if they're intelligent hauntings or some of the things you experience with their moving objects and all that, that can be frightening. But is that more because I think they're trying to get your attention for some reason?
Yeah, again, and I'm glad you kind of brought that up because there's different types of hauntings or ghosts. So you can, an intelligent, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily like there's no such thing as a stupid ghost, but an intelligent haunting basically means it's a spirit, or an unlived person who is trying to come through and give you a message of some sort. And so I want to just ask Brittany, have you ever gone to like a medium or, sometimes they have like those medium parties.
Mhm.
Like I've been to a couple, and somebody comes through and they have some information that there's no way the medium could have possibly known, and they knew about this person. It kind of convinces you. Has that ever happened to you?
So I've never been to a medium per se, like never. It's always something I've been really interested in. So I'm just gonna kind of preface this and say that I do believe in spirits. I feel like that I had, most recently my grandma passed away, and she's in different ways visited me, but it's
Hmm.
a whole different experience. I think when I think of a ghost, I tie it to like, uh, I guess a traumatic incident, whether that person's like stuck in that house or stuck in that place because something bad happened. But spirit wise, my son's family on his dad's side, it would be his great aunt. She has spirits come through to her all the time, and uh, she will relay that to us, and it's things that she would never know.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds to me like you seem to be more frightened of like a residual haunting kind of a thing, like where you'll see these things on TV, like somebody was murdered in a house and they're just kind of still locked in that house and they're coming through with visions to the people that live there and terrifying them. That's more of the thing that scares you.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I can understand that. And again, I think the way to look at that is those kinds of quote unquote hauntings, they're not intelligent. So um, they can't do anything to you because they're not trying to communicate with you. That's just an energy that's in that house or that area, if that makes any sense. And I know it could set you off and scare you because it's not something you would expect. But I can almost assure you that that's of no danger to you for what it's worth.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't remember having or ever seeing any ghosts, but I definitely think I might wet my pants a little bit if I ever did have one of those encounters. Because that is, to me, it's just something I associate here. And it would be something really hard to, I guess, relearn or be kind of open minded to.
Okay. Okay. I can respect that. I think you have to be willing, or part of you has to be, unless you're naturally gifted in that way, part of you has to be willing to communicate with a ghost for you to actually see one. So I think in your situation, being that you really want nothing to do with this, that probably nothing would come through to you. Though it's interesting that your mom said that when you were a child, you had these conversations with, I guess it was your grandfather. Oh, okay. You're mute. You're muted.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
sorry.
muted.
Sorry, yeah, that would be my grandfather.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might have a gift there that maybe you've blocked. I'm just saying because not everybody has that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where, if I did have a gift, where to start to unblock that fear. Um, and it's interesting to say that because I feel like maybe I don't have the gift, but maybe my son does have that gift just based off of some of the things he has said to me. Because unfortunately, even though my son's younger, he's suffered a good bit of loss since he's been Earthside.
Oh, okay.
I
Has
mean,
he
I
said
think
has he seen anything that he?
he, yeah, just actually, and I started to talk to Gary about this. He was on the bus and his Gammy, which is his grandma, she had passed away when he was 3, almost 4. And that's, he knows of pictures and stuff, but it's not something that it's been almost 6 years. So it's not something we really talked about. But he said the one day he was on the bus, he just felt somebody's like hand on him. And, he said it was Gammy and that she was there with him. So that was very, I guess, emotional for me. It brought tears to my eyes because it's not something we bring up. And I didn't cry too much because I didn't want to like overwhelm him, because I'm sure that was overwhelming for him to begin with.
Mm, yes. Yes. I would agree.
I mean, I think with how you said you wouldn't know where to start to relinquish that fear. I definitely think like how Anne said, like maybe even seeing a medium and seeing like, you obviously have to be open-minded when you go there, but I think that would be a good step for you if that's something that you would be even interested in, to remove that fear from you, and or even just at least be more open-minded towards it. I think that would be a good first step. I've seen one, and it was definitely very, very emotional for me. But it had allowed me to experience or have experiences that I don't think I would have had if I didn't see this like a medium.
There's, I don't know if you remember Teresa Kipura. She was on like TLC, and
Big hair.
she really sparked my interest in mediums and potentially seeing one and seeing if there was anybody who connected with me that has since passed over.
Well, I've seen like the person that I saw was like I don't know if like they come kind of hand in hand, but like a psychic and a medium or something like that, where like they could touch, like they could speak and like to people. Like she like spoke to my best friend who passed away, and then she also was like able to like, I guess like give me somewhat like I guess predictions or like see like in the future for me. And some of the stuff that she has, like, and I never met this lady before. She knew nothing about me. And some of the things that she said has happened in different ways, but I like go back and I'm like, holy shit. So yeah, it's definitely opened up my mind as far as that goes, because I feel like you said, it was just kind of like that Hollywood thing where you're like, I don't want to have that. I don't want to have that. Now I'm just like, okay, it is what it is. Bring it on. Unless you're scary, back the fuck up. I don't want you. No, thank you.
And this would take me back. I know we're talking emotions, and everybody has a different emotional connection. And this goes like if your child is seeing something, especially as a lost relative. This is where I'm saying I don't think it should be fear at that point, because you're looking at like a grandmother still looking out over a child. Uh, you could still have a connection with lost loved ones. So that's where the fear should stop. I mean, obviously it's nothing we're used to, and it's probably an uncomfortable feeling at first, but just knowing that these spirits are watching over us and probably still communicating with us, that's where the fear should end. But we're talking now children, and I know all of you have children, and we spoke about this too before. We're talking about children tend to see things more than adults, or at least they're able to communicate more. And we were both in agreement with the fact that, well, children are closer to the spiritual realm just because their life is new and they're still connected to it. Or at least that's my feeling. As we get older, we get deprogrammed of this, and we start to, come into this here crazy real world that we don't really like, but we lose that connection that we have to our previous life.
Yeah, and I like that you talked about the programming, because I think even as if you're a child that sees a lot of things and then you start talking about it, what's the first thing most people will say? Your friends will say, you're crazy. You were dreaming. You've got an imagination. They tell you all this. Here you are, a little kid, and what are you going to do? You're actually, because it doesn't make sense, right? Nobody else sees it but you. So what are you going to do? You're going to internalize that. And it kind of saddens me in a way, because I wonder sometimes if we all would have had this power or gifts, whatever you want to call it, if it wasn't, like you use the word, deprogrammed.
Or
And that's how
shunned.
I see it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
She had said that, and it makes me think like when I had like my encounter, when my best friend passed away, I was shunned off as, your mind was just showing you something that you wanted to see.
mhm.
But I don't think it was that.
Well, we could look at shunned, and we could also look at ridicule too.
Yeah.
This society is absolutely crazy when it comes to that. We ridicule each other for, certain beliefs and,
Yeah.
stuff. There's some religions that actually believe, I mean, even Christianity, the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, it's all part of religions and all, but we ridicule everybody for our beliefs.
Wait, it's ghost?
Yeah.
I thought it
Yes,
was spirit.
Yeah, Holy Spirit, but they used to actually say Holy Ghost, and it was explained, at least when I was in Cat, they did away with Holy Ghost because the word ghost, but spirit is the exact same thing, but spirit's like the nicer term and people don't get scared of it, but that's it. People are scared of certain things, and I don't understand why we're scared of words or things like past relatives and all. Where I would think it's a little bit different, like if you go into another home, like Anne, grew up in this haunted home, and it was other spirits that were not connected to our family or anything. So it gets a little bit more fearful, but there's still, listen, if you had that gift to speak to them, the things you might learn, I think would be absolutely fascinating. These here people could have moved on into the other realm, but they left things that are still open here, like, things that they never, I guess connected with, or, they never solved or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just trying, if they're picking up that you see them or you feel them, they'll intensify that by, like, Anne had objects moved and stuff like that. Unless you anger them. And Anne, I remember when we played with that Ouija board, I mean, we angered them.
Yeah.
So it's a big difference.
Talking about this, I know I'm gonna like get a dirty ass look, but it really makes me think of that Ghost Whisperer show where like she sees the ghost and like they have things left unfinished and she helps like, have them do it. I know that's complete Hollywood, but it makes me think, that idea was probably like, if you look at it at a broader spectrum, like that idea was probably like of the show was brought up by probably someone experiencing something like that, maybe,
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, we are still kind of talking Hollywood because it's the whole concept. They kind of make it Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which, but the concept is on the right track.
Yeah.
But yeah,
she sees the ghost and then they try to help them so they can go to the other side or whatever, or be at peace. So yeah, there's probably, someone out there like that would be badass. Like I would love that. Like, hell yeah.
And we all your mom, like my wife is extremely connected. And when she went to see Angelo, the psychic and all, and he said, that there's a gaggle of women that follow her and ancestors and all. I think it was 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 5.
And I've experienced those 5. Like I felt a couple of times a presence, like when they are communicating with her, usually when she's asleep, I can actually feel it at times. And it's very powerful. And they're like literally pushing me out, completely. And it's focused in on her and they're protecting her. So I know she has that gift. It's just a matter of understanding it and using it to the point where you're able to communicate in a way that it's not frightening.
Yeah. Yeah, it creeps me out because too, a little bit, because like she'll go to like these places like, what was that place up in, Lancaster, Wrightsville or something like that area. They had went on like this night thingy and, she's like, I just kept telling this guy, like, you can't come home with me. Like, and I was like, what? Like, and it was a spirit. And she was like, he was just kept trying to follow me. And I just kept telling him, like, you can't come home with me. I'm sorry. Like, I'll talk to you here, but that's it. And I was just like, okay, that's a little creepy. I'm like, Mom, you need to sage the house. Like, and she's like, no, follow me.
So she was saying she actually saw him.
I don't know if she saw him, but she felt him like so vividly that like, yeah, like, and then also that same night, she said that there was a little boy, and I think she was able to, like, I don't know if she physically saw him, but I don't know if it was just so powerful that she could mentally see him, because she, like, I think she told me, like, what he looked like. I just don't recall, like, what he looked like, but she was able to tell me, like, what he looked like and stuff like that, which was, like, so devastating to me, because, you think about it like a little child, but she's very, very powerful when it comes to that. So it's, like, fascinating, but frightening at the same time, because I'm like, please don't bring no one home.
And she wasn't scared, though, right?
No.
No, she
And
there's
that's
times.
what I find.
Go ahead, Ann. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's what I find. People that are truly, truly like gifted like that, like your mom, they're not scared,
Mhm.
and so that if anything, Brittany, that should be like a little bit calming to you. And the thing that's really sad, there are a lot of quacks, right? There are people that go like, oh, there's a I see a guy there, he's talking, and they're quacks. I mean, I hate to say it. And
Mhm.
I think they're the ones that ruin it for the people that are like really connected. I really don't think I'm connected, but I've had experiences and I know people that are connected. And, you know, the fact that she's not scared is what I'm saying. And people that are really connected tend to not be scared,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think I'm connected either. I just think I have brought on my own experiences because in like a moment of like weakness, like I just like forced my energy on trying to keep me going for something. And it brought me experiences. But I think, unfortunately, it's not that I'm closed minded. It's just, I just don't think I have that full ability to do that for myself.
I
yeah.
my my I definitely believe in spirits, and I still feel that my grandma was with me. She passed away in September of 22. And on my first birthday after she had passed, she always called me every birthday. It never failed in the morning. If she didn't get a hold of me, she'd leave me a message and then I'd call her back and we would talk. So that first birthday was really difficult for me. Um, but when I went into work, my coworkers had threw a surprise birthday party for me. And one of my older coworkers who actually reminded me a lot of my grandmother had made me a vase with artificial flowers in it. And in the artificial flowers was a cardinal. And my grandmother absolutely loved cardinals. And they say that cardinals, when you see a cardinal, it's somebody that's passed away. So that just had come full circle with me. And I was crying and I said, I love you, Grammy. Like, thanks for, just letting me know that you're still here. And then after work, my son was in track and field, and I go out to his school. And when I'm pulling out of his school, there's a bus, and the bus is run 10, and it's the company that my grandma used to drive for. So it was her bus, what she would drive, and it was pulling out of the school as I pulled in. And to me, that was another sign of her just letting me know that she's still with me. And automatically, I was in tears. I was, it just meant so much because she's was such an influential person in my life and helped raise us and always took care of us. So I I'm open. I guess I'm more open to like the positive things. It's the it- I'm thinking of all the people that I in my life that have passed. They've all been, close friends. So or family members. So I don't think any of them would haunt me. But
Visit you.
yeah, visit me.
I like
I just
visit better.
I
Yeah.
just I guess when I think of ghosts, it's like the Gettysburg. Like they have all those ghost tours there, and then like Williamsburg, Virginia. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been there.
Mhm.
But I had went one time and it was just so overwhelming for me because of the people had passed, and maybe that's why I associate it with negative, like a negative thought.
Hmm.
I can say for certain with if we want to talk about emotion, most of the times these encounters with ghosts or spirits, whatever you want to, name them, there's an emotional connection, especially if it is a lost family member or a lost friend or whatever. It's going to be an emotional experience because it's so connecting and it's something that's still so not understood. So when we have these encounters, yes, they're going to affect us emotionally, and we don't know exactly how to handle them because like it's just not in the norm for this to happen. So I think if we start to normalize it a little bit, where we can actually, say, hey, this is just another way of communicating, because that's really what it is. Like, I don't find myself gifted, or I'm not sure if I have that gift myself. However, if I go into a deep enough state of meditation, you're opening yourself up. You become like an antenna, and you just
Yeah.
start to receive things that are not from here in this 3D earth. You're going to open yourself up more to that higher fifth dimension and all. And you might get signs, symbols, like Brittany, you're talking about the bus and, the carnals. These are signs that are telling us something.
Mhm.
We don't actually always have to have a, full on ghost type of communication, but these
Yeah.
signs that are there that are triggering you to say, hey, this is a reminder of that person, and that person's still with me, and they're still looking out after me because they're giving you these signs. So yeah, it is emotional. And most of the time, it's kind of like you said, they come at an emotional time.
Mhm.
Sometimes when you're at your lowest, your weakest, you'll have these, but it can also happen when you're at your highest and you are in that high state of vibration too. And it's going to draw more of positive experiences for you. Um, and then, like I say, it could also be the complete other way around. Like if you are going on these ghost hunts, Gettysburg and stuff like that, and Williamsburg, we're surrounded by the spirits of others that
We're suffering.
that were suffering, that died in battle and stuff like that. We all are energy. So our physical bodies die, but where does this energy go? I mean, energy cannot be, created nor destroyed. So it goes someplace. So whether you have a residual, you know, haunting, which a lot of times is probably the most common, it's just something that's goes on. It's like on repeat, and you hear the same thing or you see the same thing at a certain time. That's the energy that's left behind. Or you get into these more intelligent hauntings, like in Ann Lund's condition in her home there in the Bronx. Things would happen, things would move because it's physical. They're reaching out, so it's more intelligent type of a haunt. There's so many different types, and I think really the answer to the question that this show is trying to say, should we fear it? We shouldn't fear it. We need to understand it more and normalize it more. But every individual experience is going to be a little bit different depending on what you encounter from the other side. There are some people like my wife who can just open up and basically communicate with any of them. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad. And Anne, I know you mentioned she's not scared, but there were times when she was absolutely frightened. And just like in real life, there's good people, there's bad people. And then
Yeah.
when you move on, that doesn't really change, I don't
Mhm.
think. Because I'm not the type that believes in heaven and hell. I think it's all the same. It's just another realm. There's still that yin and yang. There's still good. There's still evil. So I think that's, another part of fear. It just depends on the type of experience you have. And just because sometimes it might be a negative experience doesn't mean that they're all going to be negative. I think it's just based on your vibrations and how you handle it. Um, so in conclusion, I just want to go around real quick. Brittany, your entire, experiences and all, right? Uh, now that we've spoken a little bit more about it and you might have a slight more, understanding of it, is it something that you think should be normalized and should be practiced? Like, should we be open to this sort of thing?
Oh, I absolutely think we should be open to it. And that's why when my son had told me that, I didn't want to overwhelm him. I didn't want to like shut him down or um, like make him feel like it wasn't normal. And one of the things he said to me is, if you ever feel a hand on your back and nobody's around, it's your it's your Grammy. And that to me was huge. So I myself would like not to be so scared of ghosts, maybe. And there are things that both you and Anne have said that open my mind a little bit. I'll be honest, I'm still going to be scared, but definitely mind opening here.
Very good. And Anne, to our listeners that, might be interested too, but you living in a haunted house, I think other people are in that same situation and they're fearing it because they don't understand it. Is there anything you could say to them to put them a little bit more at ease?
The one thing I wrapped my head around it is I was never physically hurt. Like nothing. And I think when I realized that, I'm not physically getting hurt, this entity, whatever you want to call it, is of really no harm. And so then I would start asking myself, well, what does he want? Um, so I don't know if you know this, Brittany, but I saw a ghost when I was young, and he was as clear as you are. The way you look to me right now is how he looked. He was three-dimensional, whatever. He said nothing to me, but he looked at me, and there was a definite connection that we saw each other. So you want to talk about scary, and I was 9. So I was a little bit older than your son, so a little more cognizant maybe than like a 3-year-old. But and that happened one time, full body manifestation, you want to call it. But then the house had a bunch of like little creepy things happen. That probably would scare you, but I was never physically hurt. And so I think when I came to terms with that, then I would say to myself, well, what does this person or this entity want? And sadly, I never did find out. And this is now 4 years later. That's the big mystery of my life, I guess you could say. I always kind of wanted to try to figure it out, like looking at the history, and we never did figure it out. But if you, yes, you could get emotionally hurt. I get it. It could scare you, but I'm still here, and I consider myself lucky to have had that experience because it's not an experience a lot of people have. So, um, I know it sounds infantile, but I was never hurt by it,
Right.
just a little scary
Hmm.
in the beginning until we got used to it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. And I think, like, I know, and it's based again on Hollywood. You get some people, they get scratches or stuff on, but those physical wounds are so minor. I think a cat scratch would probably be worse than the things I've seen. So if it's just a spirit that's trying to reach out, get your attention, how those scratches wind up on people and all, I'm not sure. And again, we're looking at TV, and maybe people have had real life experiences where they might have gotten like some sort of physical wound, but I don't recall anybody ever getting something so bad other than a small scratch appears on them or something like that. So, yeah, I don't think we need to fear actual physical harm. Now, objects can move sometimes, and you might be in the path of that moving object, but I don't think really it's intentional. But again, I also believe in the evil side of things, and there could be evil, but again, even the evil, it's in another dimension, and I don't believe that it's strong enough to cross dimensions yet to the point where it can actually harm you.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong because I believe that there may be people whom have been maybe physically, but I think more emotionally scarred by this because they maybe the entities are using that fear against them.
Hmm.
mhm.
I
So
definitely
go ahead, Ann.
Oh, I didn't
I'm
say
sorry,
anything.
Brittany.
it's okay.
This is what Zoom happens.
I definitely think mine's more emotional fear than physical fear. Um, and I think the emotional fear probably would come from just thinking through this, somebody I didn't know, the unknown. So if it's somebody I do know, while it may be different, it is a little comforting in a way. Where if it was somebody like you saw, Anne, I, I think that emotional fear would take over. I've never like feared physical harm from a ghost.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
Very good.
And I can understand that because, to back you up on that. It was scary. I'm not going to say I saw it. I was like, oh, this is great. I can see something no one else sees. It was frightening. It was horrifying. But actually what made it even worse was when I began telling people and they were basically telling me I was making it up or there was something wrong with me. I was lucky that in my house, I had one other individual who was also seeing things. One person. So I had somebody to back me up, so to speak. And then when things would happen, she she was a voice of reason, I guess. I could go to her and she was like, oh yeah, this is what happened. So yeah. And interestingly enough, if I could just add, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but across the street from my house, there's a 300-year-old, it's like 250 or maybe 300-year-old house. It's a historic house. And there was a family that lived there. I was very friendly with the mother. She actually gave birth to her 4 children in the house. So she was very connected to that house, just spirit, like primely connected to that house. She had her 4 children there. And there was I call him, I'm not going to give him his name, but I did the research on it. There was a ghost in that house because a young boy had died, a 16-year-old boy had died. And there were talks about maybe how he died was a suicide. He was in a car accident. He ran into a tree. Long story short, this boy occupied this house right across the street. And I actually have an EVP of his voice. I just wish I could share it. I just don't know how to share it. It's on my old phone. But her children, and this is why I want to just mention this to Brittany with her son, her children all saw Alan, this boy. And they were in the house for 7 or 8 years before they moved, and they were totally comfortable with him, and they all saw him all the time. I didn't. I never did. And I had been in the house many times, never experienced anything. But I think because the mother basically said, this is normal, this is fine, they continued to see him. And it was really interesting to talk to these kids. They weren't lying. They definitely saw something. But I give kudos to that mom because she was also on a spiritual realm, probably a little bit like your mom, Hannah. But so she would see, but she nurtured that in her kids. And so they had a ton of experiences in that house, a ton. So just want to preface that when you don't make it taboo, I think it just gets stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
think
do
so.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's definitely important raising Chase or my son. I've been very open-minded with things, and that's one thing I never wanted to force anything on him. And, when he said that, the last thing I wanted to do was discourage him in any way if he does truly have this gift to connect with people. So it's the naysayers. I just want to tell them to go pound sand because
Yeah, right.
people like that, I'm just, whatever. You don't have to believe what I'm telling you. Just don't voice it.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think too, that's the other thing. On the outside of this, the outside of our group or outside of the metaphysical, yeah, there's a lot of witch hunting still going on. And we need to just start normalizing things that might not seem normal to all of us. The welcoming of spirits and ghosts, the good ones, the ones that we can connect to. It can be a wonderful, nurturing, and learning experience for all of us because we could find out a lot more about ourselves. We could find out a lot more about the past. We could connect dots on certain things and, just find out the history of other people and the way they had lived. And I find that to be beautiful. And that's, just me and my opinion. But I think we've touched on what we wanted to touch on this. So I really, if somebody has something else, like Ann or Brittany, if you got something else you want to add to our little discussion here, please jump in now. But Hannah, did you have anything?
I know you had mentioned like it's beautiful, and it makes me think of, that there are, Mexico, for example, they have like the Day of the Dead.
Mhm.
And there's still cultures out there that, are just widely accepting of this. And I would I would love to just sit down with like someone who does that and just see like what they've experienced. Cause I just think it's so beautiful. And, it's just something that, like Brittany said, like to tell them to go like kick sand, like people who don't believe, because like there are cultures out there that do this and it's the normal for them. And I think we should normalize that. And, maybe we would be more at peace, because I just find like, especially like I've had an experience where it's just like someone's gone and you don't know why and you're angry. But I think if more people were open-minded to things like this, then maybe you would get like the answers that you would want, and maybe it would help you with your grief if you were open to it. because I know for sure, like from personal experience, it has helped. Yes, I'm still angry, but I've had experiences that have gotten me by. So
Perfect. I want to thank Ann Lund for joining us.
of course, always.
Always.
Best.
Ann Lund is really the person to reach out to when it comes to hauntings and all. I admire the way you approach this, and we're still waiting on your book. So get busy.
In time.
I gotcha.
Yeah. In time.
Absolutely. But Ann Lund, thank you so very much. And listen, to all of our audience, I'm going to have links down in the synopsis of this show. Find Ann Lund on Facebook. Follow her. Follow Haunted and Waiting on Facebook as well. And she posts a lot of great stuff on there. Absolutely, truly fantastic. Whether they're personal experiences or you can even share your own stuff, videos, EVPs, stories, whatever it is, you can share it on Haunted and Waiting. So, Ann Lund, I want to thank you again so much for joining us.
Anytime. It's always a joy. I love your content. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Brittany, for you to jump on here again and, overcome your, those things you never thought you'd do, like podcast, and now you're a semi-host here on EyeOpener Society, and now you're even speaking about ghosts and spirits with us. I want to thank you too for joining us on this episode.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll have you on again. Like I said, you're that backup host there that could join us and lend a little bit of a different perspective every now and then. So I want to say good night to Brittany and Ann, and Hannah and I, we're going to start getting some more episodes. I got some more concepts for other episodes that Brittany, maybe even you could be a part of too. But we got some big things coming up. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, EyeOpener Society, and go to our website, eyeopenersociety.podbean.com. You find all of our shows there. Check out the synopsis of this show for links for Ann Lund and whatever else I decide to stick on there. Hannah,
Yeah.
I thank you, of course, for being my
thank you.
beautiful stepdaughter who always joins me here. So everybody, thank you again, and we will see you on the next episode.
See ya.